Well, first of all, Eduard, Tatjana, thanks to you for inviting me. This talk was indeed given in Doha, in Qatar. It's entirely different from the topics you're addressing during this workshop, but I hope you still will like it. I read in the book, in the welcome word from Eduard, that you had additional funding, but there was a substantial cut, and there was no money anymore for gathering data. Well, actually, in this way you can gather data for free. So it's open to all of you. So we started this workshop with some happiness, and I hope to give you some happiness in addition to offer you a free facility for data collection. But having said that, I think it's very important to tell you what this gift is all about, how it was constructed, and how you can use it. So my talk is about the MESS project. The MESS project has a central element, the list panel. Well, let me first say a few words on CentERdata to make sure you know what this institute is all about. It's an independent institute housed at the campus of Tilburg University in the Netherlands, in the south of the Netherlands. And we have three main activities. We collect data, mainly via online methods. We also carry out qualitative research for policy analysis, for ministries, and model development. And we have a team that works on software solutions, tailor-made software solutions for data collection and dissemination. There are 32 people employed by CentERdata, and I'm now focusing on the data collection part with our MESS project. Well, MESS stands for not a messy project, but it stands for Measurement and Experimentation in the Social Sciences. It's a highly advanced research infrastructure for the social sciences. So what happened? We have to go back to 2005. In the Netherlands, a program was launched by the Dutch government offering 100 million euro to large infrastructures for scientific research. This money always goes to telescopes, particle accelerators, to mouse labs to do cancer research, but it never goes to the social sciences. Because we don't need these kind of sums for scientific research, they think. But we thought, well, we come up with a proposal to build a large infrastructure to do social science with. And the key element of this infrastructure is the open character. So it's open to anyone throughout the world. And the central element is the list panel. List stands for Longitudinal Internet Studies in the Social Sciences. And you see quite a number of satellites around this list panel. We measure with new measurement devices, with innovative means of collecting data. I will spend some time on that later. We have a longitudinal core study, we have an immigrant panel, we do some experiments, and we also link to administrative data. But let's now turn to this list panel. This list panel is the central element, and it's an online panel consisting of 4,500 households. When we started, we wanted to have 5,000 households. Due to attrition, we are now back to 4,500, but there will be a refreshment sample later this year, so we hope to get back to the 5,000 households with approximately 8,000 individuals, and now we have 7,000 individuals. And all individuals within these households aged 16 plus can participate. And we present them questionnaires every month for in total 30 minutes of time. So it can be one questionnaire, it can be several questionnaires, that can be a questionnaire to a small part of the panel, etc. It can be anything. Where we wanted to have a substantial amount of money for was paying incentives to our respondents. So what we looked in the literature, and what we found there, incentives are very important to increase response rates. And they do. So we offer 15 euro an hour on average to response who participates in the monthly questionnaires. So that's €7.50 per month. And in the Netherlands that's quite a lot. I think all over the world it's quite a lot. But we believe in a serious incentive. And again, for scientific use, you can use this infrastructure, you can use this panel at no cost. But first, let us ask the questions, why should we use online panels for scientific research? Because we started at CentERdata in 2000, and there's a lot of criticism to online research for several reasons. And we are aware of that, but let me mention these things. Nowadays, almost everyone has an online panel. And what the problems are, first of all, non-coverage. Because only those who have access to internet can participate. Persons without internet are usually excluded. And if you have general population studies, this is of course a huge problem. In the Netherlands we have an internet penetration rate nowadays of 90%. But if we look in the Public Opinion Quarterly and read the paper by Nick Cooper in 2000 who says, well, the smaller this portion of the general population becomes, the more deviant it will be from the rest. So if you exclude them, you can have serious biases. But even if you have full coverage, there's still a very important problem with the most online internet panels we have throughout the world. These are all convenience panels, opt-in panels, volunteer panels. So if you raise your hand, you can say whatever you have on your mind and you answer the questions. So there's a huge self-selection in these kind of surveys. And we want to stay away from this. So what we do in the list panel, we do have online interviews, but the recruitment was done in a traditional way. So we collaborated here with Statistics Netherlands, who has the population register, and we asked them to draw a probability sample from this population register. And then we went to all these households and asked them whether they would like to participate in this initiative. And if they do not have access to the internet, we provide them with access. So we give them broadband access and we give them a computer to work with. So they are contacted in a traditional way, but once they are contacted and say yes to the question, would you like to participate in the panel, they are provided the means to do that online. So what do we do with households without internet? Well, we provide them with a so-called SimPC, which is developed by a small company in Amsterdam. It looks like a computer, that's a little bit different. You cannot install anything on a computer. Maybe I should say, well, you cannot get any viruses or you cannot get any rubbish on your computer. Every time you log in to the system, the essential parts of the operating system are downloaded from the server in Amsterdam and you have the same setup every time. If mostly the elderly have problems with working with this device, we help them. So we have video instructions, we have a help desk, and even when it's necessary, we drive to the household and spend there an entire day to explain how they should work. If they have technical problems, we help them with this technical device, just to make sure that they can participate. Yeah? So we invest quite a lot in that. The Netherlands is not a big country, but if we have to drive to one island up north and spend the entire day there, we will do. So how was this recruitment done? So first we had sent out a letter and brochure explaining that within 14 days an interviewer will come to the household or will call them. With a short interview, a 10 minutes interview to make sure that we collect some basic background characteristics from these households. On top of that, we have, of course, information from the administrative data provided by Statistics Netherlands because they drew the sample. So they already know something about these households. And we add a few things in the short interview. Then at the end, we ask whether they would like to participate in this panel. If they say yes, and they have internet, they can immediately start. They have to confirm that they really want to participate, because we know also from literature, saying yes to an interviewer doesn't always mean a real yes, just to get rid of the interviewer and then continue with daily life without participating in this initiative. If they don't have internet access, we provide the SimPC and give them broadband, and then they can do the internet interviews. So what was the target? What were we aiming at? Well, in this first stage we were aiming at a response of 80%, 80%, which is in the Netherlands quite high for just going out for an interview. In a second step we thought, well, there are always people who say, well, I would participate in a short interview, but I don't want to participate in this panel. And we thought that was our aim, that 3/4 of the respondents were willing, for those who were participating in a short interview, were willing to participate in the panel. And finally, again, saying yes does not always mean saying yes. So we were aiming at almost a bit more than 50% of the initial sample selected by Statistics Netherlands. When we went out, of course, a few people were very enthusiastic, earning 15 euro an hour. Wow, that's a huge amount of money. Can my aunt, my brother, can my nephew, can my neighbor participate? No. Only those who were selected by us, this true random sample, are asked to participate and no one else. In the short interview, usually you have 3 contact attempts. You try it during the daytime, in the evening, during the weekend. We asked the survey agencies to go out there at least 15 times to make sure that we reach this high percentage. If they were in the telephone mode, so they were contacted 15 times without success, then they entered into the KP mode. So an interviewer went there at least to make sure that we have contacted this household and asked them whether they would like to participate. But everything we do in this project is piloted. We look in the literature, we look what the parameters are, and then we first have a pilot. And also for the recruitment, we did a rather extensive pilot, and results of this pilot are now published in Public Opinion Quarterly recently. So what we did, we tried in a pilot experiment to find out whether the prepaid incentives work better than promised. The literature says that prepaid works much better than promised. So prepaid means that you send some money in advance in the envelope to the household without having done anything. A promised incentive is, if you participate, then you get paid. Also, we were wondering whether we should introduce the panel at the beginning of the interview or at the end. Whether we should have a special letter or a standard letter. With standard letter, I mean the letter we as academics usually write. I hired a communication office to write a special letter. And this letter, I remember, started with, earn now 15 euro. In the survey research. I said, no way, this is like selling cars or something like that, or a new device. But he said, wait, you as academics are always with your nice letters, academically sound, it's for society, and you want to have a general population study. So there are also part of the population who will be sensitive to these kind of things. So we tried out and whether this worked. And also we tried out Katie and Katie, so telephone interviewing and face-to-face interviewing. And then finally there was a huge debate in our team about the incentive, because we were just thinking about having a 0, 10, 20 and even a 50 euro incentive, so 2,000 Russian ruble. And imagine that you get a letter in your mailbox with 2,000 Russian ruble included. You don't have to do anything. Well, actually they're asking you to participate in an interview. But if you don't, you can just keep the money. I thought, well, this is very strange. But somebody who's also in our team and who works for more than 20 years in the US now, says, well, let's try out. The more you pay, the higher the response you will. Let's see. And then there's a nice anecdote, because when we send out the prepaid incentives with the 50 euro note included, then some respondent went to a bank to check whether this was a real note. It was a valid note. And when it turned out it was a valid note, he went to the police officer and we got a phone call. And the police officer was just asking, what are you doing? I just said, well, this is science. Later on I have another anecdote. Again, a police officer contacted us, but it was in a completely different case and it happened only recently, which frightened me a little bit. So this is what we did, and what were the results? Well, the effect with incentives were that if you go from 0 to 10, it was an increase of 15% response. So it was substantially. And it also increased, so this person from the US was right, if you go from 10 to 20, from 20 to 50, but it was not linearly anymore. So it increased about 3%, which was not significant. So we decided in the end that we will go for the 10 euro. We have a huge budget, but still it's limited. So you have to be careful with the money. And again, what was shown in the literature, prepaid works much better than promised. In terms of the information, the results were a little bit well, disappointing, because there was no effect of the content of the letter. There was no effect of the time of the panel introduction, so we could do it at the beginning or at the end. There was some effect of seeing or reading the brochure. So those who participated in short interview and saw the brochure, they were more willing to So what we finally did in the main recruitment, we had a combination of Katie and Katie, because there was also no effect between Katie and Katie, which surprised me a little bit. I think if you go for Katie, response percentages are, in most cases, a bit higher. But we found out this is truly a selection effect. For those of you who don't have a telephone number for, are contacted face to face, and these are different people. So we stick to the combination of Katie and Katie. We paid a prepaid €10 incentive. We also promised, in addition to, in this third step, an additional €10 incentive if saying yes is a real yes, if they really start to participate. And we paid some attention to the design method. And these were the results. So we contacted 90%, we reached 90% of the households. 75%, which was a little bit lower than the target of 80%, completed the interview or the sent them questions. 63%, which was higher than what we targeted at, were willing to participate, and registering as a panel member ended up at 48%. So almost half of those who were selected by Statistics Netherlands participated in the short interview and registered as panel member. We started with a gross sample of about 10,000 and we ended up with these 5,000 households. And of course, still, if only half of those who were selected are participating, you may get a little bit worried about, response patterns. So we looked in what Statistics Netherlands had available. We looked what we collected in the short interview, and we compared this to the, let's say, leading scientific panels to see whether we have similar non-response patterns, and we had. And we were clearly outperforming the commercial access volunteer panels. There will be a paper shortly by John Krosnick from Stanford University, who compared all kinds of volunteer panels in the Netherlands with the list panel, and the list panel performed much better in terms of coverage and selection. But still, there were some biases, and we wanted to correct these biases. So first we had a refreshment sample in 2009. This was stratified. And in 2011 we had a random refreshment sample to increase, to correct for attrition, because people drop out. Then we got a question from a researcher who wants to focus on immigrants, the immigrant population in the Netherlands. And it turned out that the ethnic minorities in the Netherlands were represented in this panel, but numbers were too small to have serious research based on. So what we decided was, together again with Statistics Netherlands and cross-cultural psychology at Tilburg University, to build a immigrant panel next to this list panel. This panel consists of 1,700 households, 2,400 individuals, and this panel can also be used for scientific research free of charge. So if you are interested in this part, you can also contact us. Let's now turn to the use of the panel. So we have an infrastructure you can use in two ways. You can collect new data by just proposing a research project to us. Please be very short in it, 2 to 5 pages. All the instructions are on our website, how you should do it, what the criteria are. And we have budget available for you to run this project. So if your project is approved, and it's not done by me, but an independent board of overseers consisting of professors working at all universities in the Netherlands from different disciplines, they will look at your proposal. And if it's accepted, then we will program your questionnaire. If necessary, we even translate the questionnaire to Dutch. We program the questionnaire, we test it, we communicate with you about the questionnaire. We fill the questionnaire, we pay the incentives, and we deliver the data back to you after the fieldwork has been done. And because this is an internet panel with monthly interviews, this can be done rather quickly. The second thing you can use this infrastructure for is using the existing data, also free of charge. What you can use is the longitudinal core study, say a few words on that in a minute, and all the proposed studies. So if you proposed, everything is for free, but in return, data will be shared by anyone in the academic community. So it's open access. So if you collect new data, Only commercial research is excluded, and if it's for scientific policy or societal relevant research, you can use this panel. And again, for scientific research, irrespective of nationality, it will be done at no cost. And proposals can be submitted throughout the year. It's a very light procedure. And again, details are on the website. And it's not that you have to use the entire panel. I give you 3 examples here of people who proposed something. Somebody proposed to test the effects of illness babies in first year on labor participation of the parents. So we followed the pregnant women for 3 years for this project in the list panel. Somebody else from the economics department in the university in the Netherlands wants to focus on the effect of the economic crisis on household portfolio choice. Well, then we select panel members who own stocks. And of course, what also has been done with this infrastructure, survey methodological research. Normally, it ends up in top journals based on 100 students at the university. Well, here you can have, well, let's say 1,000 respondents, and then from a heterogeneous population. So it's not only students, but the lower educated, the higher educated, the young, and the old. So you can also have a random sample selected. Now, to motivate you a little bit on the fact that we are looking at your proposal, but not only 10% is successful. Here you see that 121 proposals of the 170 proposals we have received so far were accepted. Many times after a revision, but they were accepted. And to show you, not sure it's readable, but these are all the universities who have proposed to the list panel so far, including Stanford, Harvard, Michigan. The World Value Survey Association collected the Dutch part with this list panel in December last year. All Dutch universities have used it, and many universities in Europe have used it. And we hope that the Russian university will be among these very soon. So let's then turn to the existing data, because there's since we started collecting data in 2007, 2008, so we already have a huge amount of information available. And that can also be used by you. I told you we have a longitudinal core questionnaire, and the idea behind this questionnaire is that we have the experience that if you ask researchers to come up with a proposal, there's always an overlap in questions, in variables to be collected, and that's not efficient. So we thought, well, let's create a huge longitudinal questionnaire with all kinds of domains. This questionnaire, this course study lasts for 160 minutes of interview time, so it's spread over the year in different modules, and these data are collected every year. And these data can be used as some sort of background variables in your proposed study. There are now proposed studies that only ask one additional variable, because everything is already collected there. So in the personality, politics and values, we have the big 5. These kind of scales we have collected every year. So you can use these data in your study and link it to whatever you want to do that. And this was not made up by us, this longitudinal core study, but it borrows from national and international surveys, like the Survey of Health, Aging and Retirement in Europe, which is the same as the Health and Retirement Survey in the US, the European Social Survey, the World Values Survey, all kinds of large international surveys were used to create this core study. So how are the data disseminated? Well, they are disseminated through a sophisticated archive, which is available on our website. The link is shown here. This archive, well, the source code was created by us because there was a lot available on how to specify social science data in theory, but there weren't that many applications in practice. So we decided to create something ourselves, XML based, on the international standard DDI, Data and Documentation Initiative, version 3. And again, we also use the principle here, open access, open source. So if you want to use this data dissemination tool, just send a message to us and you can have the source code for free. It's not an easy one, you have to have an IT team who can handle this. But if you want to use this, and it has been used by others all over the world, to disseminate their social science data. Now what we recently added was a new feature, so-called shopping cart. The problem is, of course, that we have so many studies and the relevant variables you might want to have are in the different studies. So we have to download all these databases and then merge, which can be done for clever scientists, everybody can do that. But we have added the feature that you can just go to this individual study and say, well, I want to have this variable. From that study, I want to have that variable. Again, press on the button, and the database is created for you. And in addition, the codebook for this data set is provided as well. So it's just put the variable in a basket, and it generates a database for you what you want to have. Let me briefly go through this website. And show you where you can find it. So this is the website. Here you can also find information about how to submit proposals, etc. But here you have the data archive. It looks like this. Without logging in, everybody can do this. You can browse the studies. We have the two panels, the list panel and the immigrant panel. If you go to the list panel, you see all studies available here. It starts with the core studies, with the different modules, and all the assembled studies, all kind of different topics are there. So let's choose sexuality and media use. I click on it. I see some information, general information about this database. I can go to the publications, and this is a very nice example because this was published in a top journal, Public Reading Quarterly. So a publication based on these data was published in Public Reading Quarterly, but also a bachelor thesis was written on this database. Yeah? So everybody can benefit from this. This was a two-wave study. If I go to wave 2, I see the information when it was collected. We have a response overview. The response for this survey was 87%. And we can also go to the questionnaire with all the variables and the question and text, all in English. But if I just choose one, you can see the English and the original Dutch that is asked to the respondents. You can scroll down. Here you see add to basket, but I can't do that right now because I'm not logged in. You have related variables, related questions, and everything is available there for you, information about this particular variable. If I go back to the wave, and I go to data and documentation and publications, I can download in English and in Dutch the codebooks. And if I want to download the data in SPSS or this data, click on download, and then you have to write down, then you have to have a login code. So you can see everything, what's available there, without having an access code, but as soon as you want to download the data, you need to register. If I go back to the data archive, I can go into the data archive in several ways, browse studies, browse topics. I can also go to browse concepts, choose health, and I see all the topics with respect to health which are in the database. Let's do one final thing. I can search in the database. Let's go for culture. Search. And then every study, every variable, every concept on culture is displayed here, and you can go to the detail. So this is how it works. Okay? Then something on innovation. Because we also try to innovate in data collection. And these are the three things that are currently running. We have smartphones. The respondents themselves have smartphones, and we provide them with smartphones. We have the so-called Accelerometers. That's an international collaboration with the American Life Panel, nowadays housed at the University of Southern California, and ELSA, which is at the University College of London. And we have wireless internet weighing scales. And what I would like to do right now is to go through these very quickly in the slide and then show a very small video giving you a flavor of how we work with these kind of things. So for the smartphone, we developed an app to collect time use data. And actually this is usually done in the Netherlands by the Netherlands Institute for Social Research, and they send out these diaries. People have to fill in time slots of 10 minutes every 2 days a week, and we are trying to innovate on that. So together with the National Institute for Social Research, they are running their diaries, and we are running now for a small part, with a small part of the list panel, the same thing, but then via smartphones. What we also do is not only collecting data on activities, but also send some questions at random moments to the respondents. How do you feel at this moment? With whom are you, and what are you doing? And they can fill in these questionnaires in 10 minutes. If they do not have the time in these 10 minutes, then this pop-up screen goes away, and we have no response. Because it's very important to collect these feelings at the moment we would like to have them. So we had some pilots to check whether the app worked on an iPhone, on an Android phone, and now it's in the field. It's a 12 months data collection. We have every month 170 panel members, so at the end we have 2,000 respondents. They complete 2 days a week, and we have 200 known smartphones lent to these respondents for 7 days. The second thing we will do is together with Twente University, the Center for Transportation Research, we use the GPS, so to collect data on how they move along during the day and the week. And normally these kind of research projects are based on just 1 day. Now we want to have more data on their transportation behavior, and we collect these kind of data with an app. And this is a rather smart app. It's still in development, that if you go from your home to your work and you repeat that every day, the app knows after a few times that this is for the purpose to work, because you also enter some details in a web interface at the end of the day. So it's a learning app and fills in as much as the app can do in the database. And of course, if there are errors, you can correct at the end. Then the accelerometer study. So accelerometer is used to measure physical activity. This is a wrist-worn device. We do this together with people from the States and the United Kingdom. We have a 13 weeks data collection. We send out these devices every week to panel members. If they come back, don't be afraid. We clean them. We make sure that nothing happens with these kind of things. Some are very dirty, but will be cleaned and then sent out to panel members again. And finally, we have a weighing scale study. We send 1,000 weighing scales to households. They put this weighing scale in their bathroom. They stand on this weighing scale every day or every week. And then without entering any data, we get their weight and fat percentage in our database. It's transmitted via a radio signal. And we do get these data. And we already have 80,000 data points collected in 1 year. So we have accurate and very frequent data. So we do this now for almost 2.5 years. Is this unique? No, I think this is not unique, but the unique thing is that this is all done in the context of the list panel. So you can link the accelerometer data on physical activity with all the variables you have collected in the longitudinal core study and in the proposed studies. So, it's without sound, but I will give some hints. So this is about the time use app. They can download it from the App Store, the respondents, then they can log in as a panel member, and fill in their daily activities in this device. It starts in the morning. Of course, you don't have to fill in 10 minutes time slots when you're sleeping, but then you can enter that you start sleeping at 11 and the day ends in this project at 4 o'clock. So you can scroll down and put in 4 o'clock. So it starts in the morning. If they fill in some of the activities, there are also sub-menus to make sure that you have the right activity. And this is all based on the harmonized European time use study. That's why we use the 10-minute slot, because one of the complaints of the panel members were, well, I'm willing to do that, but every 10 minutes, come on. But well, that's chosen in this time use study. Here you see a pop-up question. So how do you feel at the moment? Happy, stressed, etc. And they also can have an overview of their daily activities. So the smartphones are also used for the mobility app. So they come to our office and we send them to the respondents. The app is already installed on the smartphone. They can see all the movements, how they did it, with which mode. So if somebody is cycling, the app knows, well, this is a speed for a cyclist, not for somebody in an airport. And at the end of the day, there's a web interface and they can see all the data collected and correct if wrong. Or if they want to have some additional information entered in the system. And when the smartphones comes back, there's a student assistant who registers this phone. And here maybe the anecdote comes, because we hand out all these smartphones, and 2 weeks ago I received again a letter from a police officer. It was an official warning, because one of the smartphones, one of the numbers that was registered on our account, was used in the drug delivery line for ordering drugs. So if I would do this again, I would have to go to jail. So I called the police officer and told him that this was again research and explained it. This is the accelerometer, wrist worn, for 8 days a week, 24 hours a day. So this lady also should wear one and goes to the shower and can just keep the accelerometer on. It is returned to us and we again register all data in our database. There's also some information entered into this device, so we know that given to a female, weight and height is also entered. This is the cradle where it is put in. Then it downloads all the measurements and it has some information about subject settings. And when this is all correct, then it starts processing all data that are stored in this device. We have an X, Y, and Z axis. So it's measuring accelerations in 3 dimensions. It also measures the light and the temperature during the day. Then you get these kind of data from one respondent. And well, this is in the area of big data, because you get a huge amount of data back. And it's quite a challenge to analyze these data. These are the weighing scales. The final one, we send these to the households. The respondent stands on the weighing scale and doesn't have to do anything else. Weight is transferred and fat percentage to our database. This is the small device just linked to the router, and this small device communicates wirelessly with the weighing scale. And then we receive all the data in the database. The first time the weight is measured, the respondent has to identify that this weight fits to his or her profile. And then, well, if you have 2 respondents in a household with a similar weight, then you can have a difference in fat percentage, but still the database or the algorithm should know which person was standing on the weighing scale. And some respondents get feedback. That's of course a tricky thing, giving feedback to respondents, because that may influence their behavior. But that's also something we have put in an experiment. One part gets feedback and the other part doesn't get any feedback. Okay, I'm almost there. Two final slides. One is on international collaboration. So my dream back in 2005 was to build this infrastructure in the Netherlands. The next dream is to build this throughout Europe, throughout the world. The whole model was copied in France a few years ago by Sciences Po. And the German Internet panel at Mannheim University was built last year. And there will be in a short while also, again in Mannheim, a GASES Omnibus panel. All based on the same methods and the same ideas. And hopefully this will lead to a wealth of international comparisons and new global data networks. So I hope that you not only put some efforts in writing a proposal and sending to us to collect data, but if you are in the position to tell this to the National Science Foundation, I'm more than willing to help and try to get such a facility also in your country. So finally, to sum up, we have a very nice infrastructure which is open to all of you. We have already collected a huge amount of information available to you, and we hope that we can continue this for many more years. We have funding until mid or the end 2014, but we're now in the middle of a renewal proposal, again in competition with the exact sciences. So it's a tough competition, but well, I like this challenge, and I'm quite confident that we will be able to continue this effort and offer this facility to all of you as open infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcel, very much for a wonderful presentation. Even though I have seen this a couple of weeks ago already, I am still and even more impressed about it, because it takes a while until you really see the potential and it trickles and settles down. I'm particularly impressed by this shopping basket option. So if someone is interested in emancipative values, you can analyze their relationship with almost anything that has been studied, variables that might not have crossed your mind, from drug use to sexual behavior and all kinds of things. So the only thing that I can still see where you can improve is that you implant a Wi-Fi connected chip into every respondent and have a constant data stream all over the time. No, but seriously, this is really fantastic. And getting this in more countries is, of course, the way to go. We have now time for questions and discussion, so please.
Thank you for a really very impressive and wonderful presentation, wonderful idea. And the only question that I have is, have there been any validation studies comparing the results? I'm going back to the first example of the online surveys, and I'm wondering if there were any validation studies that have been done comparing the findings or results from the online studies to face-to-face or to other modes of questionnaires.
Very good question. This has been done. There are several studies, and one that's on top of my mind is the European Social Survey. So exactly the same part of the European Social Survey was administered to the list panel, and they looked at validity and reliability measures. This was done by Melanie Revilla from the university in Spain, and I can give you her paper, and she compared it, and her findings were that these data were as of the same quality as collected via the traditional methods. So there's also some research, and there was also a research study for the European Values Study, but I can't remember the results. But this one for the European Social Survey was done quite extensively. And these data are also in the database. In fact, it was done as an MTMM experiment. Not sure what it is. 23.
He knows his database, that's for sure.
Oh, yes. Oh, that's okay.
Just looking for the publication. There they are.
Okay, and just another part of clarification. At the moment, the sample that you are using is a Dutch sample.
Yes.
Okay, because you have been showing a list of other countries that have been using your system. Does this mean that these countries have been using a Dutch sample for their purposes? Or
That's very weird. That's very weird, isn't it? Now I can think of 3 reasons to use a Dutch panel as somebody from abroad for comparative studies, of
Right.
course. Secondly, for survey methodological research. Yeah, that's done by the Recruitment on the others. And also, but I'm not in favor of that, is that if you have some research project and you want to pilot your questions, this could also be used as a pilot. But, well,
Thank you very much.
the first 2 are the ones, are the best ones.
Veronica?
I just have a question of economic effectiveness. That's really fascinating, and it's a question like, is it like really more expensive or less expensive than standard ways of interviewing?
That's also a good question, because there's quite a lot of money invested in this, and if I give you the money, you will say, well, this is not economically efficient. It's 2 million euro per year, but we paid 700,000 euro a year on incentives. So this is a huge amount of money, but if you look at costs per respondent or cost per respondent variable, it's 3 times cheaper, still 3 times cheaper as the traditional methods. So there's a large investment up front, and because we have a lot of incentives to be paid. But still, if you compare this to the HRS and all these kind of surveys, it's 3 times cheaper in terms of, because we collect a huge amount of data. We have so many data.
Sophia? Josh?
Yeah, I have 3.
Is that ladies first?
At this point, no. I have 3 questions. First, the timing of the panels. This is something I don't quite, excluding the smartphones and watches and other sort of fitness scales. The timing of the panel is month to month, or is it year to year?
Now it's every month we collect data. So, and this longitudinal core questionnaire, which sums up to 160 minutes, is done in several modules.
So the 160 minutes is year to year, and then the 30-minute is month to month. Okay, then the second question is...
maybe I should add, it starts the first Monday in the month. It's also a very nice moment in the Netherlands, because then the alarms are tested. So at 12 o'clock the alarms will sound in the Netherlands, and then the questionnaire starts.
That's great serendipity there. Then attrition rates. What is the overall attrition rate for the panel? And then specifically for those who are habitual internet users, and then the new internet users. As you know, panel surveys are very different from cross-sectional, and the major problem with panels is attrition.
Attrition is 10% on a household level per year. On the respondent level, it's a bit higher. We have looked at demographics to explain attrition, and we couldn't find that much. The only thing we found was that the best predictor for attrition was sleeping behavior of the respondent. So if irregular behavior starts, that is a signal of somebody who will drop out again. So we have a protocol now that if somebody is inactive for 2 months, we call them. Just an informal phone call if there's something we can help or what's happening. After 3 months of inactivity, we call with a formal interview, and we even offer them an additional incentive to participate again. So we are on top of the sleeping behavior, because that leads to attrition. But it was not a variable explaining attrition, not a demographic variable. And providing this equipment to the elderly, they are really loyal panel members. So if you provide this equipment to them, they stay loyal and they stay in the panel for quite a long time. But there's also a research project on comparing the non-internet population, and it asks questions like what kind of population this is and whether they are representative in the panel, whether they stay non-internet persons. And then there we found out that 50% of those who were provided with this equipment, they only fill in the questionnaires, nothing else. And the other 50%, well, they start using some emailing, some internet, that are not heavy internet.
So every year 10% you lose, and you replace that 10% every year.
So what we did every 2 years.
Replace every 2 years. Okay. And I guess the third question is also quick about if you do a proposal, and one of the great methodological problems is that you ask a question in cross-sectional research, you ask a question at one point in time, and then you don't know if tomorrow they feel the same way. So the question is then, you can ask the same questions in one, can you have a proposal in which you ask a question 1 month and then next month the same?
Yes.
Same one. Is that possible?
There are even proposals that ask for every one measurement per year, and then they have 3 measurements, so for 3 years. Some have a measurement in February and the same measurement in November, so that's all possible.
Can you go like February to March?
Yeah, that's also possible.
That's also possible. Thank you.
You can also preload information, so information that was collected before, and you can add it into your questionnaire to have a different route.
Now it's Sophia's turn.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Actually, my question taps a bit on what you said earlier about this 15% of individuals who didn't have internet access. I'm just wondering whether, have you done any studies of their answer patterns, like whether, I mean, of course there's some demographic characteristics of these groups and so on, but whether, for example, can you trace some kind of learning that they actually learn how to reply to questions, and do you have any information on that?
So there's a paper published in Sociological Methods and Research, and also one in Public Opinion Quality, which exactly look into this. So whether being a panel member influences your behavior, and we couldn't find any evidence that this is the case. The only thing we found, and that's of course obvious, that if you ask a panel member who's the president of the Dutch Central Bank, and you repeat these kind of questions 1 year later, then of course you get a bias. So the knowledge question you should have asked the panel, that seems obvious, but we didn't find any evidence that it influences attitudes and behavior. And if we look at the non-internet populations who were provided with equipment, then there we also didn't have any signals in seeing that being now on the internet influences their behavior. So we didn't find any evidence of that.
So you cannot like advertise panel participation by saying it makes people lose weight or blood pressure.
Well, actually, I'm a bit worried about the influence on